Hey y'all, TRG here, and welcome to the first video of the 2025 hurricane season. In this video, I'll give you my Atlantic 2025 hurricane season forecast. Let's go right on into this season's forecast. So let's go ahead and start off with our sea surface temperatures, looking at the Pacific and the Western Atlantic. So the main area to watch over the next few months is definitely going to be out here in the Eastern and Central Pacific. That's where our Enso 3.4 is, which is what we use to predict and observe our neutral La Nina and El Nino phases. Currently, we are in a neutral phase. Temperatures are relatively average, but actually getting to below average now at this point. And also back out here towards the Western Atlantic, you can see we are actually above average in most of the Caribbean into the Gulf. Bit of a zoomed in view, you can see we are at 29 to 28, right around that range in much of the Caribbean, and into 27 and 28 in portions of the Gulf, with portions of the Western Atlantic also maintaining right around 27 to 28, which is favorable for tropical cyclone activity. Looking at our temperature anomalies here in the Pacific and the Western Atlantic, you can see we are looking at below average across this portion of our Eastern and Central Pacific regions. So this is starting to shift closer and closer to a La Nina, currently a neutral, but we are definitely starting to get even as low as 2 degrees below average in some of these areas. So we are getting right on the edge of a La Nina here on our anomalies. And then out there back into the Gulf, the Caribbean, it is above average. The Eastern and into the Central Atlantic is actually a bit below average right now as you get towards the Leeward Islands. We'll see how much that changes. So sea surface temperatures going to be something we need to watch very, very closely over the next few months as we approach peak hurricane season in September. Those anomalies looking a little bit closer in the Gulf, Caribbean into the Western Atlantic. You can see much of the Caribbean is above to near normal, a bit below average as you get towards the Leeward Islands into the Central and Southeastern Atlantic, but a lot of the Gulf and at least into the Central and Western portions of the Caribbean, as well as into the Western Atlantic, all above average for sea surface temperatures.
All right, guys, here are your Enso probabilities from April, May, June, all the way to December, January, February. As you can see on the left side, we are in a neutral phase right now, and we might start to shift to maybe a weak La Nina phase later on in the season. In the August, September, October frame, you can see that we have a 55% chance of being in a neutral phase and a 35% chance being in a weak La Nina phase. So we are most likely going to stay in a neutral phase, but could shift into a weak La Nina during the peak to the latter half of hurricane season.
If you haven't already, make sure you go hit that like button, share this video with your family, friends, social media, and hit that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload a video. Let's go right back on into this season's hurricane forecast. So here's our concepts for May. We're currently sitting around above average in portions of the Caribbean and about below average in the Southern Gulf. As we go through June, we should continue to see above average precipitation through much of the Caribbean, maybe even into the western southwest side of the Gulf. There is the chance for tropical development as we get towards the middle and latter half of June, probably around the Yucatan Peninsula, maybe even into the western side of the Gulf, so we'll keep an eye on that. Going into July, there is a really good chance we see more areas get above average precipitation, going from all the way into the mid-Atlantic states in the eastern U.S., all the way back down into the western Atlantic through much of the Gulf and into the Caribbean. Into August, we will see a very large region of above average precipitation. August will likely end up being one of our more active months of this hurricane season. Everything is really above average there, from the main development region off of Africa all the way through the Leeward Islands, the entire Caribbean above average, and as well as much of the Gulf. September, start to see a bit of below average creeping into the Gulf, but remaining really above average through much of the main development region, into the Caribbean, around the Yucatan Peninsula, and into the western side of the Gulf. Into October, it is worth noting that this is, of course, very far out, so there's a pretty high chance it's going to be wrong, but it still shows a large area from the main development region all the way into the western side of the Gulf, into Mexico, all above average with below average out in portions of the U.S. and the central and eastern Gulf. So this is the CPC's official outlook for June, July, and August this year, and you can see pretty much the entire eastern U.S. is under a slight chance for above average precipitation there, with a slightly more elevated chance being about 40 to 50% chance of above average across portions of the southeastern United States back up into the northern mid-Atlantic U.S. So this is what our Enso phases do to the northern Atlantic and eastern Pacific hurricane season. So for an El Nino, that typically leads towards a more wind shear in the North Atlantic as well as into the Western Atlantic and the Caribbean, leading towards a less active hurricane season. And then we typically have less wind shear in the Eastern Pacific, leading to a more active hurricane season there. As we go into a La Nina, it's the dead opposite. More wind shear in the Eastern Pacific, meaning a less active hurricane season there, whilst less wind shear across the Caribbean, Northern and Western Atlantic, leading towards a more active Northern Atlantic hurricane season. This year, we're going to be probably in a neutral phase to a weak La Nina, so I'm expecting minimal change across both basins. There may be a period where we have less wind shear in the Atlantic and a little bit more wind shear in the Eastern Pacific, but it should be a small enough change to where I don't expect much of a overall large difference in the forecast. So here is the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season outlook, season probabilities by NOAA. And you can see they have it being a 60% chance of us seeing an above average hurricane season in the Atlantic, with just a 30% chance of a near normal hurricane season, and a very slim, just 10% chance that we see a below average hurricane season. So we are looking at an above average hurricane season. Might be able to get closer to near normal, but most likely will not see a below normal hurricane season. So looking at a very active 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. And here we go. This is my hurricane season predictions for the 2025 Northern Atlantic hurricane season. So we're going to start with, of course, our average. The average across the Northern Atlantic basin is typically 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. That is typically a normal season out here in the Northern Atlantic. NOAA, they have forecasted, of course, like they normally do, giving a range to range number. So 13 to 19 is their named storms forecast. If you go in the middle, that means that 16 is the most likely outcome. 16 is obviously more than 14, thus predicting a better chance for an above average hurricane season. Their hurricanes is 6 to 10 hurricanes, and if you go in the middle, that's 8. So that is 1 more than the average, again predicting an above average hurricane season. Major hurricanes, they are predicting 3 to 5. Go in the middle, that is 4. They are predicting, again, an above average hurricane season in that regard as well. Mine for the named storms, average 14, NOAA 16, mine just 1 more than NOAA. Not that aggressive this year, just 17 named storms. That's still above average. Really shouldn't say just in that. That should be quite an active hurricane season. So a quite active hurricane season is going to most likely be the outcome for this Atlantic hurricane season. Hurricanes, normal average is 7, NOAA 8, mine is 8. I did not go for 9. I agree with NOAA being 8 hurricanes as the most likely outcome for this Atlantic hurricane season. Major hurricanes, average is 3. NOAA, they've gone with 4. And I agree. I have 4 for my major hurricane prediction. So not that far off from NOAA this year. The only change between NOAA's and my forecast is I have 1 higher named storm. That is it. If you take the average from NOAA and, of course, mine, NOAA 16.8. Mine 17.84. So I am right neck and neck with NOAA. I agree with their average for the hurricane season. I didn't want to go too low because I feel like this could still be a very active hurricane season, and I definitely didn't want to go too overboard because there's still a chance that we stay in a neutral phase and never even get remotely near that weak La Nina phase. So I went dead in the middle, but a little bit more for the named storms, 17 as opposed to 16. Just 1 named storm difference. So that's the forecast. Again, average 14, hurricanes 7, majors 3. NOAA, if you go in the dead middle, they are at 16, then 8, then 4. Mine is 17, 8, 4. So again, only one number change on my forecast compared to Noah's forecast. So I am predicting an above average hurricane season this year. I do believe it will be a very active hurricane season, especially as we get towards August and into September. So I appreciate all you guys for watching this season's hurricane forecast, and I appreciate Lucky for helping. He did that quick segment on the Enso probabilities. His channel will be somewhere near the top of the description, or you could just look it up at Lucky's Weather on YouTube. And I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and hopefully you guys are ready for this hurricane season. If you have not already prepared, please prepare today, this week. Get that hurricane preparedness plan ready to go. I appreciate you guys for watching. Stay safe, watch for your weather, watch the tropics. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.